Listen. That is not a sound composed to evoke fear. That is something real echoing through the vacuum. We named it after a god of time, of harvest. And for centuries, we watched it from the cold comfort of the earth. We drew it in notebooks. We gasped at the rings. We called it beautiful. We called it magnificent, and we were right. But beauty in space is rarely safe. Welcome to Saturn, the master of celestial graves. The first images arrived in 1979. Voyager swept past at over 35,000 kilometers per hour and still took days to clear the system. Saturn did not notice. It had been there for 4 billion years before the spacecraft arrived. It would be there long after its signal faded into static. The scientists rejoiced. The photographs were extraordinary. The rings shimmered like something constructed, like something deliberate, like a message written in ice and stone, waiting patiently for someone to look up. We looked up. We believed we understood, but we forgot. We forgot what it means to stand at the edge of a thing too large to comprehend. Saturn is not a planet in the way we imagine. There is no surface beneath the storms, no ground to stand on, no shore to reach. Descend into its atmosphere and the sky simply thickens. Hydrogen and helium press from every direction. The pressure mounts quietly, steadily, inexorably. At a certain depth, the gas ceases to be gas at all. It becomes liquid. Then something stranger still, metallic hydrogen, a state of matter that does not exist naturally anywhere on Earth, conducting electricity in the dark like a buried wire inside a world that has no center you could ever touch. There is no moment of arrival, only compression, only descent with no end and no return. The rings appear serene from a distance. They are not serene. What looks like smooth, luminous bands is in truth a violent architecture. Billions of fragments, ice and rock and dust, each moving at its own velocity, each governed by gravitational forces pulling from 17 different moons. Collisions happen constantly, silently, at speeds that would destroy anything engineered by human hands. The gaps between the rings are not empty. Cassini's division, named after the man who spotted it through a 17th century telescope, looks like a clean, dark lane from Earth. From inside, it is a graveyard of shattered particles, swept clean by the gravity of Mimas, a moon barely large enough to hold its own shape, pockmarked by an impact that nearly killed it. Space is full of things that almost died. Consider the temperature. The cloud tops of Saturn sit at -178 degrees Celsius, cold enough to liquefy oxygen, cold enough to make metal brittle as chalk. The winds move at 1,800 kilometers per hour, not gusts, sustained, permanent. A storm at Saturn's North Pole, a hexagonal vortex wider than 2 Earths, has been rotating without pause for as long as we have watched. It was there before any living person was born. It will be there long after the last of them is gone. And the radiation. Saturn's magnetosphere stretches millions of kilometers into space. trapping charged particles, accelerating them, focusing them into belts that would deliver a lethal dose to an unprotected human body in hours, not days, hours. The Cassini spacecraft was designed by some of the most brilliant engineers in human history, shielded against the harshest conditions our science could anticipate. Even so, its instruments degraded. Components failed by the time mission controllers sent it into deliberate destruction in 2017, a final plunge into the planet's atmosphere chosen to protect the moons from contamination. It was already dying from the inside. We built the best thing we could. Saturn was still winning. And yet we dream of going further, of Titan, Saturn's largest moon with its thick orange haze and lakes of liquid methane. A world where it rains hydrocarbons, where the atmosphere is denser than Earth's, but the air will kill you in minutes, where the cold is so absolute that water is stone and the ground beneath your boots is harder than granite. We have sent a lander. Huygens descended through Titan's sky on January 14, 2005. For 72 minutes, it transmitted images of a world no human eye had ever seen: orange terrain, river channels carved by methane, a shoreline. 72 minutes. Then, silence. As if the moon had simply swallowed it whole and returned to what it had always been: indifferent, ancient, utterly unmoved. Here is what the data does not say. It does not say how alone a body would feel in that place, suspended between a ringed horizon and a sky with no stars bright enough to name. The sun, from Saturn's distance, is a point of light, bright still but small, cold-looking, diminished. It does not say how slowly light moves when there is nothing to carry it, no air to scatter it into warmth and color. On Saturn, sunlight arrives as information, not comfort. It does not say that the solar system's most photographed object, the one that made children gasp and astronomers weep, is also one of the most inhospitable arrangements of matter in our corner of the galaxy. It is beautiful. Beauty is not mercy. We named it after a god of time because something in us sensed the truth before we could prove it. Saturn does not exist on a human scale. Its storms outlast civilizations. Its rings were old before life crawled out of Earth's oceans. Its gravity bends the paths of things without awareness, without intention, without pause. We sent machines there. We gathered data. We wrote equations that predicted its behavior to within fractions of a second across distances of 1 billion kilometers. We called this mastery, but mastery of a map is not mastery of a place. The Cassini spacecraft burned in Saturn's atmosphere in September of 2017. No one watched it happen. By the time the signal confirming its death arrived on Earth, the spacecraft had already been gone for 83 minutes. We received the news of its end before we had fully processed that it was dying. That is the distance we are dealing with. That is the scale we forget to fear. We looked at Saturn and called it a jewel of the solar system. We were right, but jewels do not care who wears them.